Good morning, Ms. Mybeck. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Are you ready?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Chairperson, as you know, today has been scheduled for the continuation of Mr. Gama's evidence. He last gave evidence, I think it was on the 11th of March. This year he is here.
Yes.
And ready to take the oath.
Okay, please administer the oath or affirmation. Good morning, Mr. Gama.
Good morning, TCJ.
Thank you.
Please state your full names for the record.
Siyabonga Gama.
Do you have any objections to taking the prescribed oath?
No.
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear that all the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming back, Mr. Gama, to assist the commission and availing yourself.
Thank you.
Chairperson, the documents that are of particular relevance to Mr. Gama's evidence are firstly and principally Bundle 7, Transnet Bundle 7, Exhibit BB28. That is Mr. Gama's exhibit. And then we will also be referring to Bundle 6, that's Exhibit BB27, the so-called Transnet POI reference bundle.
Yes, okay, I've got both of them. Mr. Gama's legal representatives, are they still the same?
Yes, and they are present.
Okay, all right. For the record, Mr. Gama is still represented by the same legal representatives. Thank you. Okay.
Chairperson, since the last sitting, Mr. Gama has provided us with 2 additional affidavits. One of them is contained towards the end of Exhibit 28. The other one was given to us this morning. We have hard copies, and at the appropriate time, I might ask you to introduce that into evidence. We hope maybe at tea time that we can formally get it paginated and added to the bundle. So for present purposes, I'd like simply to add Mr. Gama's penultimate affidavit. Mr. Gama, could I ask you please to turn to page 250.130. Chairperson, the documentation last time went up to page 250. The pagination of the documents that followed are 250.1 and further. It's not ideal, but it was caused by the fact that there's another exhibit that starts at page 251.
Yes, no, that's fine. So the page that you have asked us to go to now is
250.130.
Okay.
Are you there, Mr. Gama?
Almost.
Yes, I've got it.
Yeah.
Mr. Gama, there you will find the commencement of your affidavit that runs up until page 250.175 and then includes a series of annexures which run from point 176 all the way to point 257.
Yes.
Do you confirm that?
I confirm that.
I could take you back, please, to page 250.175. Do you confirm that you deposed to this affidavit
Yes, I do.
on the 18th of March 2021? And do you confirm the truth and accuracy of this affidavit?
Yes, I do.
Page 250.175, Mr. Mybeck, being the last page of his affidavit.
Yes.
Of the affidavit that starts at page 250.130.
Yes. And
Yeah.
if
Is
I
that
could
correct?
ask you, if I could ask you, please, to enter that into evidence, Chairperson, marked Exhibit BB 28.5.13.
The affidavit of Mrs. Siyabonga Gama that starts at page 250.130 is admitted as an exhibit and will be marked as Exhibit B 28.5.13.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, subject to your direction, we've agreed with our learned friends that the proceedings will commence this morning with Mr. Gama reading the balance of his initial opening statement. We've looked at that. We have no objection to him doing so.
Okay.
You'll recall that previously
Oh, yes.
there was a ruling where he dealt with part of it and just the evidence of the witnesses that he was going to deal with on that day.
Yes.
So Mr. Gama had dealt with the first 5.5 pages of his opening statement. I assume that you'd want to pick up there, and perhaps I could direct your attention, please,
Yes.
to page 250.6. I understand that Mr. Gama would like to carry on reading into the record his opening statement from there. He did previously deal with the evidence of Mr. Todd and also the conclusion. Chairperson, Mr. Gama has then prepared a further opening statement which seems to me to deal predominantly with procedural matters. He wants to read that opening statement after he's dealt with this. We're provided with that opening statement this morning. We have got hard copies, and perhaps at the appropriate time I can hand it up to you and we will then find a place for it in the bundle.
Okay, all right. Well, the previous one I have seen, so if there is any new one, I would need to see it first.
I can then hand it up to you, if I may.
Yeah, okay. But that one can be dealt with later, not now, is that right?
Well, I think that subject to your direction, as I have it, and I've just squizzed through it, it seems to deal with predominantly procedural issues. Mr. Gama has certain complaints that he wishes to level against the legal team, which is, of course, his right. And he also appears to take issue, Chairperson, with the ruling that you made in relation to proceedings on Friday.
Oh, okay.
To the best of my knowledge, he seems to deal with those two things broadly.
Yes.
So we don't have any difficulty. It's not a case of someone being implicated or
Yes.
anything of the sort. From the legal team's point of view, we would have no difficulty
Yes.
with Mr. Gama dealing with that, subject to your direction.
Yeah. Well, maybe, Mr. Gama, if it's fine with you, I don't think that I would have any difficulty to you articulating your concerns, but I would like just to read it in advance. Can I give you a chance to deal with this sometime during the course of the day?
That's fine.
Would that be fine? When I've had a look at it. But the previous one, you can deal with it now if you would like to deal with it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. As you know, I had started with my opening statement on the 11th of March. It should not be construed that I've been reading it since then, because then it might become the longest opening statement. I don't want to be in
Well,
any
you
Guinness
can
Book of
go
Records.
into the relevant books of record.
No, thank you very much. I think when we dealt with it, I had indicated that there were various testimonies which were provided by witnesses who have sought to implicate me, to highlight some of the more glaring discrepancies, inconsistencies, and improbabilities and falsities. I then continue with my statement at page 6 of the statement, under heading number 8. I start with the statement of Popomlife and his testimony. From Popomlife's testimony, the Commission has learned how my appointment at Transnet allegedly occurred. According to Mlife, my appointment ostensibly occurred due to the influence of Gigaba. This allegation, I believe, has been purposed to fit the state capture narrative. I would like to explain again that, as indicated in my affidavit disposed to concerning my history at Transnet, I have worked through the ranks and was ultimately appointed as CEO through hard work and dedication, and not through the influence and hand of Gigaba, as Mr. Popomlife would have you to believe. Mr. Gigaba was appointed as the Minister of Public Enterprises in 2010. At that time, I'd already worked at Transnet for more than 16 years. The minister is only ever involved in board appointments, and so it is hard to understand how Popomlife could reach the conclusion that Mr. Gigaba had a hand in my appointment as a CEO at a division of Transnet, which is below board level. It must therefore be recorded that this is false. Popomlife admitted in his oral testimony under oath that the contents of what he had stated was not within his own personal knowledge. I'm dealing there with the transcript of his testimony to the State Capture Commission of the 7th of May 2019 at page 6. So his own viva voce testimony when he first appeared at this commission when he was being led by Advocate Paul Pretorius. He, however, went to great lengths, Chair, to claim that I was one of 3 architects of state capture at Transnet. He never defined or explained what an architect of state capture is, or even worse, the facts on which he relied for such a startling, and I must say, false allegation. The allegation that I'm one of 3 architects of state capture has never been even remotely substantiated by credible evidence. On the topics of regiments Trillian and Gonki, I have been accused of colluding with the aforementioned entities. The truth of the matter is that each of these entities' contracts were terminated by me during my tenure at Transnet. Such terminations were based on objective evidence placed before me at that time, that inter alia, Transnet's continued relationship with them would bring the reputation of the SOE into disrepute. Popomlife failed to make mention that the contracts with regiments and Trillian were terminated by me with the concurrence of the board in October of 2016. This was approximately 9 months before the emergence of the now infamous June 2017 Gupta email troves that captivated the country for many months. Terminating contracts is hardly the conduct of a person who is colluding with those said parties. Popomlife, as non-executive chairman of Transnet, was at pains to point out to the media during October 2018 that Transnet had terminated my contract due to acts of alleged fraud, corruption, and misconduct on my part. In the pleadings with reference to the arbitration that I'm having with Transnet, Popomlife denies that Transnet terminated my employment due to misconduct. The aforementioned arbitration proceedings have not been commenced. Such a turnaround points to either a personal vendetta or incompetence on the part of the board and Popomlife or their dishonesty. Following my dismissal and in a bid to gather evidence that he ought to have collected before dismissing me, Popomlife hired a retired bishop and offered amnesty to managers at Transnet if they came forward and indicated that I had asked them to perpetrate a fraud or corruption against the company. Significantly, no one came forward, as the notion of me being corrupt is falsity that has been created by Popomlife and those of his ilk. Mlife, in his affidavit, explained that he has initiated civil litigation against me and others at the South Gauteng High Court, finding me as respondent with regiments and trillion entities whose contracts at Transnet I had terminated. During his oral testimony, Popomlife created the perception that Transnet was struggling financially during my tenure with the SOE. The truth and the facts, however, are very different in that during my last year at the helm of Transnet, and as evidenced by the facts, not fiction, that is routinely reported in our media, Transnet remained strong financially. By way of example, net profit grew by 75% from 2.8 billion in 2017 to 4.9 billion in March 2018, which was against an 11.3% improvement in total revenue from 65.5 billion to 72.9 billion, and an 18% improvement in operating profit from 27.6 billion to 32.5 billion rand. This performance indicates that Transnet was financially independent and did not require any subsidy or guarantee from the state. Chairperson, have the Commission and the South African public been misled? What we have witnessed over the past 2 years at Transnet is extreme sabotage of an SOE. The intentions are dubious, and as I have pointed out before to Popomlife, the pressurization of Transnet is afoot. And I've given a footnote, Chair, in terms of what I've defined as pressurization at Transnet. I coined the phrase pressurization to refer to the phenomenon where Popomlife led intensive forensic investigations leading to a state of paralysis and lack of decision-making. And whilst the board gives the impression of purpose, it's an illusion. The authority of executives is curtailed and the board takes decisions that ought to be taken by general managers, and the main business suffers as a result thereof. In 2020, we witnessed that net profit at Transnet as at the end of March decreased by 34.9% to 3.9 billion. While this is still respectable, Chair, but because it could and should have been less. However, I suggest that your observers must watch if there will not be a decline leading to a real collapse in profitability over the next 3 years when the impact of pressurization fully sets in. Between 2016 and 2017, Transnet embarked on a process to create a new strategy that would insulate it from low domestic growth and penetrate new markets whose growth was in excess of the static South African domestic GDP growth. For the year ended March 2018, Transnet announced a 75% growth in net profit to 4.9 billion against an increase of 11.3% to 72.9 billion, driven by strong volume growth. All the fundamentals tracked positively against South African GDP growth of only 0.7%. These were not the results of a struggling company. Yet in May 2019, Popomlife informed the Commission that the new board had averted a financial collapse of the company. A News 24 report by Lamis Omar G on the 7th of May 2019, which I've captured, it captures succinctly the false statement that was provided to the Commission. The evidence, Chair, as I've exhibited, is different. I quote, he says, it was just a matter of time before Transnet became Eskom. Not that we like where Eskom is. It is serious. It is in serious trouble, and because of that, the country is in trouble, close quotes. He then also went on to say that when the new board took over in 2018, Transnet had been on the verge of collapse. This is not a correct analysis of Transnet during that period. It was dramatized, it was sensationalized to drum up support for the allegations of illegal activity that was being visited upon people such as myself and other experienced executives who were being patched at Transnet. I have already, Chair, dealt with the testimony of Todd, so I'm going to skip that and then go to revenue management and cost containment strategy. I then deal with the issues of Nkonki. When Nkonki was hired, some of the key projects they were tasked to look at were revenue contracts, especially in the coal line and the iron ore line. This is an area of Transnet's responsibility where established companies dominate the allocation of rail and port capacity to the detriment of emerging miners. By way of example, the most significant of these contracts is the Kumba contract, which is for the haulage of iron ore from Sishen to Saldanha. This evergreen contract, Chair, arose hastily out of the desire to eliminate an embedded derivative which arose from an ad valorem-based pricing regime on the contract, which was entered into in the late 70s. Transnet, therefore, in 2005, had entered into a new 23-year contract that would expire in 2028 at rates that are even the lowest in the world per ton kilometer. They amount to less than 1 US cent per ton per kilometer, or 12.8 South African cents per ton per kilometer to haul iron ore for Kumba from Sishen to Saldanha. So for the 861 kilometer trip, Kumba pays 111 rands per ton while Assmang, which is its competitor, is charged at a rate of 17.3 cents per ton for the same iron ore product from their Kumani mine in the Northern Cape, which amounts to 149 rand per ton. This represents a difference of 38 rand for every ton hauled, demonstrating a tariff that will not pass muster with our competition laws. So in 2013, Kumba had initially agreed that its rate needed to be normalized in line with Assmang rate in accordance with fair business practices. However, in negotiations that we had restarted in 2018, it reported Transnet and its management under my leadership to Minister Pravin Gordhan for attempting to level playing fields with Assmang and trying to get out of an anti-competitive contract. To this day, Kumba pays Transnet approximately 1 billion less per annum than what they ought to pay, had its tariff been normalized in line with Assmang tariffs, which was normalized in 2013. This anti-competitive behavior and the super profits being earned by Kumba is set to be condoned until 2028. So any Transnet official who seeks to normalize this ends the wrath of the Anglo-American PLC-owned Kumba Resources. All efforts to renegotiate these tariffs are stonewalled by Kumba. This is an environment where Kumba earns in excess of 20 billion rand net profit per annum at the expense of a state-owned entity and to the detriment of the oligopoly of iron ore in the country. As an example, Kumba earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization for the year ended 31 December 2020 increased to a record 45.8 billion rand, resulting in an EBITDA margin of 57% against 52% the previous year, which is a remarkable feat indeed. Chairperson, this is the real state capture. The Transnet-Kumba agreement is anti-competitive and exclusionary in that Anglo-Kumba has captured the rail and port capacity on the iron ore line and kept out black junior iron ore miners. In fact, all black iron ore miners sell their iron ore to Kumba because they have no rail and port capacity, all of which has been allocated to those who were in mining prior to 1994. Even though mining licenses have been issued in the rich iron ore area of the Northern Cape. The miners do not have allocation to export manganese or iron ore in their own names. So if we then move on to point number 10, a new board was appointed at Transnet in May 2018. Its first order of business, chairperson, in June 2018 was to accuse the group chief executive of presiding over malfeasance at Transnet. My attempts to induct the board to Transnet processes, control systems, strategy, and challenges, and to arm the board members with the necessary information to inform them, even to educate them, and to allay the allegations were met with huge resistance. They were armed with no operational knowledge or adequate expertise of the company they directed. Then they set out to achieve their mandate of rooting out corruption at Transnet by removing, by way of nothing less than a purge, the entire top layer of executive management, starting with the group chief executive in 2018. They also failed to appreciate the strategy of Transnet, which sought to enhance the market demand strategy and future-proof Transnet's existence. Instead, they abandoned and dismantled it without attempting to understand it. The board completed its mandate of management upheavals in June 2020. The result is that the corporate memory at Transnet has been completely erased, with every executive with long tenure having been falsely accused, charged, or exited in an attempt to bring sweeping changes by what I believe is an ill-equipped board. The pressurization of Transnet is complete, and all that South Africa needs to do is to follow very closely Transnet's future financial and operational performance. Observe its decline and the erosion of its contribution to the developmental state. So the real collapse, chairperson, of Transnet has not yet happened. It is just ahead of us. In the same submission, much was made about the recovery of 618 million from China South Rail. The interface being that this amount was improperly paid to CSR, and to the new board's credit, look at what is achieved. This is false and misleading. The facts are that 618 million had been paid to CSR against an advance payment guarantee by CSR, issued by a AAA-rated bank. The money had been paid on the advice of international company PricewaterhouseCoopers. It was legitimate and was intended for spares and tools preparing for locomotives that had been supplied since 2015. This was for the MSA contract, which was due to be replaced by a new MRS contract. This so-called refund has now resulted in many locomotives being parked in the system and prejudicing the efficiency of the railway system. You may have read in the recent newspaper reports. I just saw in the last month Transnet releasing a statement to confirm that the coal industry indicated that it was dealing with and experiencing operational problems within Transnet. The chrome industry has followed suit. The container industry, the same. The operational problems are self-inflicted, chairperson, and they result from not having timelessly put in place a maintenance reliability system with the OEMs to have adequate spares and tools post the warranty period for the locomotives that were supplied to the coal line in 2015. The locomotives are standing idly because there is no maintenance contract in place. The contract was cancelled by the Popo Molefe-led board so that they could come and announce that they have recovered 618 million. This was done by persons who simply cannot begin to understand the highly complex, networked, and sophisticated international business, which at any given time has innumerable moving parts. Chairperson, there were others, such as Mohammed Khalad and witness number 2, who have been set up to support or complement the narrative of alleged corruption leveled against me at this commission. I deny, Chair, in the strongest terms, their false accusations. I deal with these allegations made by pointing out the many falsities in their statements in my affidavit. They all have ulterior motives and are driven by the principles to achieve a particular objective. Briefly, I deal with Francis Callard's testimony. Callard was involved in the investment case of the locomotive and was subsequently appointed by MNS at the suggestion of the Audit Committee chairman to assist MNS in their investigation. Callard's testimony at the commission seems to be that of a man who felt compelled to describe all other people as being guilty of some offense or process step, whilst downplaying his own involvement in matters which were being scrutinized. While Callard seemed to have most information available, he was quite selective about the information he shared with the commission, and in most instances shared many useless items of information. Over and above that, his testimony is full of innuendo, conjecture, and speculation. Many inferences he draws are not supported by facts, but by his own rich and fertile speculative mind. It seems that Callard used his appearance at the commission as a bid to supplement his income. He currently has a claim of over 4 million rand at Transnet/MNS for work he claims that he did for them. Callard also seeks to downplay his involvement in many issues. And in many instances, Chair, where he claims lack of knowledge, I say he knows much more than he lets on. However, he also tries to hold himself to be an expert in all things, especially financial matters, which he is not. When it comes to Mohammedi's testimony and statement, Mohammedi tried very hard to support Popo Mlife, but attempts to downplay the evidence led so that he appears to create the illusion of an objective witness. He distances himself from events that he was intimately involved in so that he can minimize his role. Mohammedi was also not a credible witness before the commission. I raise this issue as a lot has been said to you without any evidence. During my testimony today, I will provide the commission with factual evidence when I make statements. Evidence-based testimony is important to bring the truth to the foreground. Any of the assertions that I aided state capture are false and are a cunning calculation that has been carefully crafted to mislead the commission and so deflect accountability and responsibility. Again, I will inform the commission through my evidence in order to reflect the true story. Witness number 262 accused me of laundering money on behalf of the Guptas. This is false, Chair. Unfortunately, I was not able to comment more on his statement as I've not been favored with the full copy of my diary. But I have dealt with aspects of it which we can deal with later on today. I've also requested through my legal team copies of mappings of my own vehicle and my cell phone in order to assist me in determining where I was at the relevant time so as to provide a proper answer. Chairperson, I am delighted that we have the opportunity to address you on the matters that have been brought to the attention of the Commission. And I know that you will distill the true state of affairs from the falsities advanced before you. I believe, Chair, that you are imbued with a desire to determine truth and to remove injustice, that you'll be fair to all of us who appear before you. And more so, that those who have been unjustly accused and have been identified and defined as enemies worthy to be tainted and defamed without providing the Commission with actual evidence, finally have an opportunity to provide to you an honest version of events. I thank you very much, Chair. We are now in prelude number 2 of my opening statement. The final one, we will deal with it, is much shorter than this, once you've had the opportunity.
No, thank you, Mr. Gama. Well, one, what you have just finished reading is those parts of your opening statement which you didn't read last time.
That's correct.
So it is one opening statement. Now, there is significance why I want to emphasize that. The significance is that I've just noticed that the other one that was handed up to me, that we talked about earlier, the opening statement that was handed up to me this morning, is marked second opening statement.
Or further remarks on the opening statement.
So I know that earlier on, without reading it and without having had time to look at it, I said you could deal with it later. But now, what has crossed my mind is I may be starting a wrong precedent if I start allowing second opening statements. There may be third opening statements, and they all take time. So, but to the extent that that statement might be dealing with Friday, is it Friday, the 30th?
Yes.
To the extent that you might be wishing to raise concerns about what will happen on Friday, I would imagine that that could be articulated maybe on Friday. There is nothing wrong with articulating concerns about what will happen on Friday. Labeling it that as an opening statement might be a wrong label. It might just be articulating those concerns. So, in principle, that's one thing. But allowing a second opening statement might be problematic. But maybe you can reflect on that, and sometime during the day we can see what we can do. I have, I think my eye did land on some sentence here that suggests what your intentions are about Friday. I just want to say, to reaffirm that I want to hear all perspectives, and I want to hear as many people as possible, particularly people against whom allegations of wrongdoing have been made. But of course, we operate within certain time constraints. The only thing that has crossed my mind a few minutes ago is that with regard to Friday, another option might be, because in terms of time, it's difficult. It's just difficult. We have for this evening the application, Mr. Gigaba's application in relation to Ms. Ngoma's evidence, and depending on the outcome of that application, we could have Ms. Ngoma's evidence. If the legal team could consider whether there is a possibility that Ms. Ngoma and Mr. Gigaba are available on Friday morning, and if they are available on Friday morning, we could consider proceeding with your evidence into the evening, which could then enable us not to lose any time, because then we could go right into the evening with you, which is the time we would have taken on Friday morning. and maybe even more, so that if we don't finish, then on Friday morning, I could hear Mr. Kigaba's application and maybe Ms. Ngoma's evidence, and then hear you in the afternoon. But that would depend on how the legal team is with that too. I think Ms. Ngoma has been issued with a summons for this evening, and that would depend on their availability. So, but that's the only thing I could think of. But if that doesn't work, then I can't see any other way of dealing with the situation. But I would allow you in due course, preferably on Friday, if we still have to proceed in that way, to make the remarks that you want to make about that point. You understand?
Yeah. Chairperson, all I'm requesting is accommodation on this matter. And if you accommodate me, as you are suggesting, there's not even a need for me to address aspects of what I believe could be constitutional rights, being infringed with. So I could then just deal with the issue of the legal team only.
Yeah.
All I've asked for is to be accommodated.
No, I understand.
And it is the accommodation that I am not getting from the commission, which is a problem.
No, I understand that. All I would like you to understand is that there are logistical and practical difficulties, not like one doesn't want to. Yes. They're just practical. Mr. Mybeck, I don't know whether you wish to say anything about what crossed my mind.
I have two other possible proposals. Maybe my learned friend and I can address you in chambers on them.
Yes, okay.
There's as you know, Mr. Malefe is set up presently for Thursday evening.
Yes.
I'm quite sure that he might be easier to move him than to move Mr. and Mrs. Gigaba.
Yes.
The other thing which we could discuss with you, DCJ, is how deep we could go into the evening on Friday.
Yeah, we can't go too deep on Friday. In fact, we can't go into the evening at all on Friday, and that's one of the problems.
All right. Well, perhaps at tea time.
Because so what it amounts to, I mean, generally speaking, between 1 and 2 is lunchtime. Okay. So if Mr. Gama's counsel becomes available at 1, it means, generally speaking, starting at 2. Sure. And we can't go beyond 4. So it means just 2 hours. Actually, I had been considering whether on Friday I shouldn't ask you to talk to Mr. Gama's legal team with a view to starting earlier. That was even before I got to know that they wanted us to start at 1. So, but maybe during the tea break,
yes,
you and Mr. Gama's counsel can approach me. But let's take it from there.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Good morning, Mr. Gama.
Good morning, Mr. Maybeck.
On the 11th of March, we dealt with certain introductory issues. We dealt with Mr. Sagar and your MBA. We dealt with your reinstatement. We dealt with the issue of GNS and Abelosi and certain ancillary issues. I just want to, before going forward to other topics, just ask you a few questions that relate to the things that we've dealt with broadly already. In relation to your relationship or your visits to the Saxonwold compound of the Guptas, were you invited to the Gupta wedding? It was held, as we have it, on the 1st of May, 2013.
No.
Is the answer no?
No. Sorry.
Okay.
Am I too far from the mic?
I think you were, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You were not invited.
No.
And then if I could take you, please, in relation to the evidence you gave about Mr. Essa, could I ask you to turn to page 52 of Exhibit BB 28, Bundle 7. You will recall that you were asked in the 10-6 about a trip, a Dubai trip in January 2016. I want to pick up, if I may, at paragraph 32.5. This is at page 52. Are you there?
Yes.
You say, I didn't undertake a trip to Dubai during the period 18 to 24 January. I traveled to Davos, Switzerland, via Dubai on 17 January 2016 for the purpose of presenting logistics and infrastructure-related papers at the World Economic Forum as part of a South African government and business delegation, which attended for the purposes of promoting South Africa's interests. During the evening of 22 January, I stopped over in Dubai upon my return from Davos. After a one-day stay, I departed for Johannesburg on the morning of 24 January 2016. Paragraph 32.6.1, I arrived at and checked in at the Oberoi Hotel in Dubai on Friday 22 January at approximately midnight, and I checked out of the hotel on 24 January 2016 at approximately 08:30. So you would have checked out on the Sunday, if I have it correctly. Is that right?
I don't know the date, but it was the 24th of January.
Well, I see that if Friday was the 22nd, then I assume
Okay.
the 24th
yes.
was
Yeah.
the Sunday.
Yes, yeah, it must be Sunday.
So as I have it, you would have stayed at the Oberoi Hotel then for 2 nights, the Friday and Saturday night.
Yes.
The next subparagraph, whilst in Dubai, I had a brief meeting with Essa during the late afternoon on Saturday, 23 January 2016, which meeting took place at my hotel. Essa had arranged the hotel booking on my behalf, albeit that I paid for my accommodation. You say in the next subparagraph, our discussions were, for the most part, centered on information sharing concerning his vision to create a majority black-owned management consultancy, the details of which he undertook to share with me as his plans developed into something more constructive. And then you go on to say, at no stage did I meet any other people. Can I just ask you, how did your meeting with Mr. Essa come about?
It came about because I was stopping over in Dubai. I think he must have called me. I can't remember whether he knew or that I was stopping over in Dubai. But he must have called me because I intended to stop over in Dubai, and then he called me to say, okay, if I stop over there, it's fine. I think my biggest problem when I wanted to stop over there was that my office was still arranging for hotel accommodation. Because I'd found that when I was in Davos, what I'd intended to do, I couldn't do it there. And then I thought that Dubai was actually the best place because it's in the middle of the world. Davos is more of a small town. I needed to buy a dress for a matric dance for my daughter. So I thought that Dubai would be the best place to do it.
And she would be very happy, I'm sure, that you bought it outside of the country.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you say he phoned you?
Sorry?
Mr. Essa phoned you?
Yes.
And how did it come about then that Mr. Essa arranged your hotel booking?
I think in the course of my discussion, I had said to him, look, I was not going to stop over for a long time in Dubai, but because I didn't have a hotel booking, I wouldn't be able to stop over. And I think that's when he then suggested that no, he could book me into a hotel in Dubai itself. And that's how I got to get to this place called Oberoi Hotel.
Had you stayed there before?
No, I've never stayed there.
Have you ever stayed there afterwards?
No, I've never. I only went there once.
And then you say your discussion, for the most part, centered on information sharing concerning his vision to create majority black-owned management consultancy. Can you expand on that?
Yes, I think from what he was indicating, and I think that's where Trillian eventually came from, as I understood it later, was that he wanted to create a majority black-owned management consultancy because most of the consulting houses that we have are largely international houses that are not owned by South African entities. And his desire was that South Africa wanted to create a majority black-owned management consultancy, which he thought that if he were able to collect people from different consultancies who were black, they would then create that kind of capacity to take on large consultancy assignments in the South African corporate space.
So was he talking about Trillian?
I suspect that the evolution from regiments to Trillian, I think I must have heard at some point that he may have been behind that Trillian as an owner, but I don't really have any facts to adduce in terms of that.
But did you discuss Trillian and regiments?
He didn't have a name. Remember, he was from regiments. And he was talking about this evolution, that he wanted to create this large black-owned management consultants.
So you didn't discuss by name Trillian and regiments?
No, not by name. Not by name.
By this time, did you know that Mr. Essa was involved with Trillian?
No, I did not know.
When did you come to learn of that?
At some point, I think towards the end of 2016, somebody, I think in our risk department, said to me, look, we suspect that Mr. Issa owns the majority of Trillian. But it was a suspicion. I don't think he had I don't think she had the actual information, but she had heard it through certain people.
Mr. Gama, I didn't get the date. What date did you say?
I think it was around 2016. It was really around the time when we were now considering terminating the contracts between the regiments and Trillian. I think it must have been around October 2016.
Sorry? September
2016.
October 2016, thereabouts. There was that suspicion from some of our risk people.
So just so that I understand the context, and I've only really got one or two more questions. I mean, just so that I understand this, was Mr. Essa suggesting that you should join this black-owned management consultancy, or was Mr. Essa feeling you out as to if this consultancy was established, would Transnet give it work, or what exactly was the object of this, this meeting?
The object of the meeting is the latter, where you are saying big corporates such as Transnet, would they be looking at majority black-owned, black management consultants with expertise which would then alleviate the need to use multinational or international entities that were probably domiciled in South Africa but registered elsewhere.
And what was your response to that?
Well, he'd undertaken to share with me his vision at a later date in terms of what is it that would transpire. So he didn't, I think it was a concept, it was conceptual at the time when we were discussing. He was sounding me out whether we would be, we would as Transnet look at such a consultancy going forward. So I had said to him, when he has shaped his thoughts and his thinking around it, he could come back to me. But I'd also, I think, mentioned at the time that I did not really like having consultants as a general rule. In fact, by the time I left Transnet, I had established an internal consulting capability, which I believe still exists to this day, because it was precisely for the reason that we had relied too much and we paid too much money to consultants, external consultants. I wanted us to really just bring in consultants for short periods for capabilities and information that we did not have or which was specialized.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but by January 2016, Transnet had already done some business with Trillion, hadn't it?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
And we'll come later, but that relates inter alia to the club loan, correct?
Yes.
And there we know that payments were made, or a payment was made, 2 trillion in December of 2015, correct?
Yes.
So, was no mention made at this meeting of work that Trillion had already done for Transnet?
No, there was no mention. The predominant entity that had done some work at Transnet in that year or the years before was Regiment.
All right, and could I take you then, please, back to page 48? And perhaps I could just ask you to have a look at your paragraph 31.3. I don't want to rehash this, but I just want to put to you the evidence that Mr. Singh gave in response to this paragraph. So, to refresh your memory, this paragraph refers to the fact that you saw Mr. Singh and Mr. Essa together in Mr. Singh's office in July or August 2015. And Mr. Essa then indicated that he'd like to have a meeting with you, and you said he could get your contact details from Mr. Singh, and this is essentially, Mr. Gama, you'll recall, the background to how you came to visit the Saxonwold residence. Do you recall that?
Yes.
I just want to put to you, Mr. Singh says that this never happened and that it simply, you've made it up as a convenience, as he put it, to explain how it is that you came to go to the Saxonwold residence.
No. There is no convenience or anything to do with Saxonwold in relation to this meeting. I met Mr. Issa at Singh's office, and I asked Singh to give Issa my number so that he could call me, because he said he wanted to have a meeting with me. So that was the long and short of it.
So you never gave Mr. Essa your number. He got it from Mr. Singh.
Correct.
Yeah. And he subsequently called you.
Correct.
Mr. Maybe.
Thank you. Mr. Singh made the point that it couldn't have been in August, because you see your introduction at 31.3 says in or during July/August. He says it couldn't have been in August because in August he had been seconded to Eskom.
As I've said, I don't know the exact dates. That's why I said either July or August. So if he says it couldn't have been August, that's fine. And if he had already gone to Eskom at that time, then it means it was July.
Then it means it must have been in July.
Yeah.
So just to end off, excuse me, in relation to Mr. Essa, as I understand your evidence, Mr. Gama, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you say that you met Mr. Essa 4 times. The first time in 2015 as part of, we might call a regiment's meeting.
I'm sorry, Mr. Maybeck. Before you go away from this particular meeting, I just want to make sure, Mr. Gama, that in regard to this meeting of Mr. Salim Essa and Mr. Singh, where you saw Mr. Singh in Mr. Essa in Mr. Singh's office, and you came in and you talked to Mr. Singh, are you saying you can't be mistaken about that? You know it happened.
Yes, no, I can't be mistaken.
Yeah. And do you have any reason to falsely implicate Mr. Singh in having a meeting with Mr. Salim Essa in his office?
No, Chair. Why would I? No.
And you said it's not convenience. There's no convenience.
No, I don't see what kind of convenience would that be.
Yeah, because he was categorical that it did not happen. Yeah, okay.
I didn't go to that meeting because of Mr. Singh. It was because Mr. Essa called me.
Yes.
So it's got nothing to do with Mr. Singh.
Yes. Yeah, you mean the meeting at Saxonwell?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Okay, Mr. Maybeck.
Thank you. So, Mr. Gama, I just wanted to make sure that I have this correct. Your evidence is that you met Mr. Essa 4 times. The first time as part of this regiment's contingent, which you deal with, this is during 2015, you deal with that at paragraph 31.2.1. The second time then in Mr. Singh's office, you now say that's in July of 2015. Then in Dubai in January of 2016, and as I recall, you say you saw him on one other occasion, casually in a restaurant.
Yes.
Is that an accurate summary of your evidence?
That's correct.
Then, in relation to the things we dealt with last time, I just wanted to put to you, and an affidavit will need to be produced to this effect, but we asked Transnet to search for your payment of the Eversheds cost bill of about R1 million.
Of the?
Of the Eversheds costs bill.
Yes.
Remember, you say that you paid it in December of 2009.
Yes.
Transnet hasn't been able to find any proof of that. Want to comment on that?
Yeah, the difficulty I think that I have is that my bank could only go back 10 years. That's really the only difficulty that I have. But I am aware that I paid it. In fact, I sold shares in order for me to be able to pay it. The difficulty is just that the bank has indicated that they can only go back 10 years. So it falls outside. I think it's on year 11 or 12 now.
The settlement agreement itself, I take it you would agree, doesn't say anything about you being reimbursed for amounts already paid.
You want me to respond to? I think develop it. I'm listening.
Is that the settlement agreement you're talking about, Mr.?
Yes.
You want him to comment on the proposition that the settlement agreement doesn't say anything about him being paid back pay? I think it might not say that, but it does say reinstatement, I think retrospectively, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, well, the provision says that Transnet will make a contribution equivalent to 75% of Mr. Gama's tax legal costs.
I'm sorry, just bring the mic closer, Mr. Mybeck.
It says that Transnet will make a contribution equivalent to 75% of Mr. Gama's tax legal costs incurred during Mr. Gama's High Court application and in respect of his unfair dismissal dispute referred to the Bargaining Council. I'm simply putting...
It's about costs that you were talking about,
Yes,
not. Oh, I thought it was about back pay.
Yes, in other words, I'm simply saying that the settlement agreement doesn't talk about Mr. Gama being reimbursed amounts that have already been paid.
Oh, okay.
That's really the only point I'm putting, Mr. Gama, if you want to comment on that.
The settlement agreement talks
Mr.
to...
Chairperson,
Sorry. Yes.
I think it only fair to Mr. Gama that he presented. It's now necessary for Mr. Myberg to even look at the document. What about Mr. Gama? He should have sight of this document.
Oh, you want him to refer Mr. Gama to the settlement
I've got
agreement?
no difficulty with that at all.
Yes.
Mr. Gama? Chairperson, for some reason, the files, which are always behind the witness today, I assumed that they were in file boxes on the floor, but they seemingly haven't been brought from storage. I
Do you
do
want to
apologize.
skip the question until later and proceed with other questions?
Yes, I think I'm going to need to.
And then when the files, maybe after tea break,
Yes.
when they're here, then you can go back to it.
And then just on this issue of costs, as I understand your evidence, you accept that you didn't pay the Bowman's account, or you can't remember having paid it. Is that correct?
You mean from my personal account?
Yes.
No, I think at that time I had not paid it.
And then I just want to put to you that when Mr. Mkhwanazi and Mr. Mpuma were asked how you came to be paid 75% of Transnet's costs, they were both at a loss for an explanation. Neither of them said, well, we were paying Mr. Gama to reimburse him.
Chair, sorry, that's not correct. The evidence of those two witnesses, just named by Mr. Myberg, is very clear. Their interpretation...
Please speak up a bit.
They were involved. Those two persons, Mr. Mkhwanazi and Mr. Mapoma, were involved in the process, unlike Mr. Molefe. It is clear what their evidence was in relation to the repayment to Mr. Gama of those fees. It's not correct to say that they were at a loss. They were part and parcel of that negotiation process, so they had first-hand knowledge of what had transpired. I think it's important to put that to Mr.
Well, the question relates to their response when they were questioned here, irrespective of what they knew. The question relates to how they responded when they were questioned.
And I recall that that was the response that I've just placed on record.
Yes, Mr. Mybeck?
Well, it's not how I recall the evidence, but I think it can perhaps be something dealt with in argument.
Yeah.
You'll remember that both of them were taxed about how is it possible that you landed up paying Mr. Gama 75% of Transnet
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
legal fees. And to the best of my recollection, they didn't know. That seemed to be something of an anomaly for them.
Yes.
And also, if you could just bear with me for a moment. Yes.
They certainly, my recollection is that they certainly had difficulty justifying it.
Yes. What they certainly didn't do, to the best of my recollection, is to say this was aimed at reimbursing Mr. Gama for monies that he had already paid. Because that is something, and I'm not criticizing Mr. Gama, that's something that we heard about for the first time when Mr. Gama gave his evidence. That's my recollection. So, Mr. Gama, when we get the files, I'll then take you to this single paragraph.
Yeah. Maybe, Chair, just, it's really just a principle issue. The principle was that I be paid 75% of the tax bill of those costs. There was no discussion or a clause in the actual settlement agreement that talked about, okay, the fact that it must be reimbursed. You just had to present the bill and show what the bill was. So whether I'd already paid for it or not, the issue was that that was the agreement, that I should be paid that 75%. So, I mean, the issue about the fact that some of it was reimbursement. Remember, when you have a legal case, you are paying all the time. By the time we had the settlement, I'd paid close to 5 million of legal costs. So I'd been paying. It wasn't as if, I think the only one that I had not paid was the Bowman.
Yes, Mr. Maybeck.
Yes, thank you. And then, as I recall your evidence dealing with the MBA, I just wanted to go back to one thing. As I understand, Mr. Garman, you must correct me if I'm wrong, you say that your TRUM, the university, conducted an investigation when the allegations about Mr. Cigar came to light. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I had asked you whether you'd be prepared to share those documents with us. It probably is my fault for not having followed up on that. Are you still prepared to share those documents with us?
I've shared those documents with the Commission.
Maybe we should take the tea adjournment now.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. We can
to
get our
give you-
files.
Yes. It's 11:25. We will resume at 22:12. We adjourn. Okay, let's continue.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Gama, as I understand it, the files have now been retrieved from the store. Could I ask you, please, to go to Transnet Bundle 3, that's Exhibit 16 and 17, Mapoma and Todd. I'd like you to go to 16. And if I could ask you, please, to turn up page 19. I'm just going to show you the provision in the settlement agreement.
19.
19, yes. So the relevant clause is clause 3.5, which I read to you. I was requested to show you it in writing. There it is. Transnet will make a contribution equivalent to 75% of Mr. Gama's taxed legal costs incurred.
I'm sorry, I missed the page, Mr. Mayback.
Page 19, 19.
On bundle 7,
No, bundle 3,
bundle 3.
exhibit 16.
I think my registrar is not hearing you. I don't have bundle 3. It's bundle 3B.
Bundle 3, exhibit 16.
Okay. It's bundle 3, there is no A or B.
No.
Okay.
So paragraph 3 or clause 3.5, Transnet will make a contribution equivalent to 75% of Mr. Gama's taxed legal costs incurred during Mr. Gama's High Court application and in respect of his unfair dismissal dispute referred to the Transnet Bargaining Council. Is there anything that you want to add to what you've already testified to?
No, I think it reads as it reads. And I think, as I've said, it was 75% of the legal costs at the High Court as well as the labor dispute. Yeah.
All right. Now, Mr. Gama, could I ask you, please, to go back to bundle 7, page 22, your first affidavit.
Bundle 22.
Bundle 7. I haven't led you with reference to each particular paragraph, but you'll see at page 24, you start this affidavit by setting out the background to my employment with Transnet. A number of these issues you've touched on, and they also, some of them are dealt with in your opening statement. Is there anything that you wish to highlight under that heading, pages 24, 25, all the way through to 29?
Highlight as in emphasize.
Yes, is there anything that you feel you would like to deal with at this stage? Of course, my learned friend is more than entitled to re-examine you and to take you to anything that he feels has been left out. But for present purposes, is there anything that you wish to deal with that hasn't been dealt with?
No, I think in the interest of time.
All right, and then at page 29, you deal with Mr. Mpoma's statement. And that, as we know, relates to your reinstatement and costs. That goes all the way to page 35. Anything you want to deal with there?
No.
And then at page 36, you deal with the evidence of Mr. Todd. You deal with his affidavit dated the 31st of July, which deals with your reinstatement. And then at page 40, you deal with what is referred to as his second affidavit, and that relates more to the GNS issues. And that runs through to the end of page 46. Those are things that we canvassed last time. Is there anything you would like to add to that?
No.
And then at the foot of page 46, you have a heading in general, and you then deal with, at paragraph 29, any political interference. Those are paragraphs in the 10.6. At 30, that deals with costs. 31 deals with your visits to, or your single visit to the Saxonwell compound. And that then runs on to the end of page 50. Anything you want to add to that?
No.
And then you deal with overseas travel at the foot of page 50. The only trip that we've dealt with and that we have questioned you about is the January 2016 trip, which you deal with, and we dealt with this morning at paragraph 32.5 and further. We went through that this morning. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No.
And then page 53, at the foot of the page, the basis for the 3 payments of legal costs. I think we've traversed most of that. That then takes you to the heading request for outstanding documents. Is there anything you want to add in relation to the basis for 3 payments of legal costs?
No.
If I could then take you, please, those assisting me have managed to have placed in the file your latest affidavit, the one you gave us this morning, dealing with witness 2. Could I ask you please to go to page 262, so it's 250.262, right towards the end of bundle 7.
250.262.
I think you'll find it, Mr. Gama, the last sort of 20 pages or so.
262.
Is it 250.262?
250.262, yes, Chairperson. Are you there, Mr. Gama?
Yes.
Now there you find an affidavit, starts at 262, it runs to 269, and it includes I think it is 4 annexures, SG1 through to SG4, running from point 70 to point 270 to point 297. Do you confirm that?
Yes.
If I could ask you then to turn back to page 250.269, the signature page. And although the date isn't filled in there, it would appear from the police stamps, and I would just ask you to confirm this, that you appear to have deposed to this affidavit on the 26th of April 2021, presumably earlier this morning.
That's correct.
And do you confirm the truth and accuracy of this affidavit?
That's correct.
Chairperson, might I ask you then to enter into evidence Mr. Gama's affidavit deposed to on the 26th of April 2021 as Exhibit 28.5.15.
The affidavit of Mr. Siyabonga Gama that starts at page 250.262 is admitted as an exhibit and will be marked as Exhibit 28.5.15.
Now, Mr. Gama, this affidavit deals with the Affidavit of Witness 2. So what I'd like to do is to take you to that affidavit, and then we will also obviously go through what is in effect your response. You can perhaps, if you wish, leave open bundle 7 at page 250.262. Could I ask you to draw out bundle BB 14D?
Mr. Mybeck, bundle 6, can I send that away for the time being?
Bundle 6, yes, you can,
Yeah.
Chairperson.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
BB 14D. If I could ask you, and I'm now going to refer you to the red numbers on the right-hand side. Could you turn to page 89, please? Are you there?
Almost.
Are you there, Mr. Gama?
Yes, I am.
I want to just take you through this affidavit. Witness 2 says, I'm employed as a senior security official in the Transnet Group. I've been appointed to this position at Transnet with effect from the year 2019. 2, I was previously employed as CPO and personal driver for Siyabonga Gama in his capacity as Chief Executive of Transnet Freight Rail and later as Group Chief Executive of Transnet. Are you able to confirm that?
I can confirm number 2, not number 1.
presumably because you don't have personal knowledge of paragraph 1.
That's correct.
Paragraph 3, for the period January 2018 to December 2019, I was self-employed. In this period, I was contracted to perform close protection duties for various business people in South Africa and other African countries. Have any comment on that?
Yes, I can comment on that.
You're going to cross-refer to your affidavit.
That's correct.
Okay, just give us a second. We can balance everything. Yes, please go ahead. So, Chairperson, that is bundle 7. Mr. Gama wishes to cross-refer to his affidavit. That's the affidavit at 250.262, bundle 7.
Okay, I've got it.
Please go ahead.
I think we now use the black numbers.
Yeah, on that one you use black numbers.
So if we turn to,
I think you start dealing with witness 2 at page 250.265. It starts on the other page, but there's nothing of substance on the other page, if that's what you are looking for.
yeah. So that page, Chair, 260.265.
Yeah.
I record.
You start at paragraph 9, and in paragraph 9.1 you deal with paragraphs 1 to 4 of witness 2's affidavit.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you look at 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3.
Just want to say that's where you respond, you comment about this.
That is correct, Chair.
Okay.
It's just a bit fun.
All right, well, let me take you through that, Mr. Gama. I suppose
yeah,
the easiest
that
is...
might
Is the
help.
lighting quite bad there? or sometimes you see better without this space.
Yeah, when it's
Yeah.
much closer, yeah.
Okay, all right. Do you want to repeat what you say in the affidavit, or you just wanted to refer Mr. Mybeck to
I
what?
wanted to refer Mr. Mybeck in as far as the issue of the period of employment, and where he indicates that you were self-employed for the period of January 2018 to December 2019.
Yes.
That my information is that he was employed at the firm that is recorded there in 9.2
Yeah.
for the period 21st of August 2018 to 31 January 2020, which I believe is a material and inexplicable omission in terms of what he indicates to you in point 3.
Okay. Mr. Mybeck?
Yes, can I just ask you, what is the source of your information?
From the firm itself. I was aware of it, and I confirmed it.
All right, and then if I can take you back to witness 2's affidavit. He says, witness 2 says at paragraph 5, at red numbers 89, I've been involved in the close protection industry since 1995, but officially qualified as a CPO in 2007. I'm registered as a CPO with the Private Security Industry Regulation Authority, PSIRA. Through the years, I've provided close protection services to various clients in the public and private sectors, both locally and internationally. Do you have any comment in relation to those 3 paragraphs?
No, I have no personal knowledge.
Then, under the heading Duties as CPO and acting as driver for Gama, Paragraph 8, the primary objective of providing CPO services to Gama was to ensure that his safety was not compromised. You agree with that?
Yes, in terms of the job description.
Paragraph 9, my duties as
Just remember not to lower your voice too much, Mr. Gama.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Paragraph 9, my duties as CPO and private driver for Gama included the following. Sub 1, on normal working days, I would collect Gama at his residence at around 600 hours in the morning and transport him to the office or to meeting venues during the day as per his diary. It was not unusual to work 15-hour days and on many occasions only arriving home after midnight. You wish to comment on that?
No, nothing to add. I agree with that.
9.1.1, for the last number of years, a colleague assisted me with the protection and transporting of Gama. We used to alternate our working schedules, where one of us would be transporting Gama, whilst the other one would be performing administrative tasks or having off days. You wish to comment on that?
Yes, that's correct, but maybe incomplete.
Is there something you want to add?
Yes. Also, there would have been occasions where both of them would be in convoy, but not necessarily in the same car. If they needed to do some kind of reconnaissance for whatever reason, one would go ahead or be in convoy.
Right. 9.1.2, other CPOs would assist with the protection of Gama over the years. Other CPOs who assisted with the protection of Gama over the years included a colleague who later on became the CPO for Amanswa Gianni, Chief Procurement Officer at Transnet at the time, and a certain Bongani, whose name I cannot recall and who later passed away. Comment on that?
You said CPO for who, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Gianni.
I'm just thinking in the record, you didn't.
Oh, yeah.
It should be Tamsang.
Oh, okay.
I'm indebted to you, Mr. Common.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, I missed that.
Well, it's the DCJ that usually picks me up, but please feel free to do the same.
No, I didn't hear it.
But other than that, that point, would you agree with that paragraph?
Yeah.
We then go over the page, paragraph 9.2. I furthermore often transported Gama over weekends on private trips. Some of these trips were to visit his family in Swaziland and KwaZulu-Natal, or friends and business people in and around Gauteng. On occasions, I transported him to Durban, where he owns a flat. Whilst in Durban, I used to stay at the Maharani Hotel. I've never been invited to join Mr. Gama at his flat. Wish to comment on that?
Yeah, I noted.
Paragraph 9.3, I was also responsible to look after the maintenance of Gama's private vehicles. Gama never made use of official Transnet transport. He always used his private vehicles for official purposes. Confirm that?
No, he was not responsible. He's not a mechanic, so I don't know what he means when he says he looked after the maintenance of private vehicles.
So you say he wasn't responsible for the maintenance?
No.
Was he responsible for making... Sorry, DCJ.
No, I'm just wondering whether the witness two's use of maintenance there relates to the job of a mechanic or whether it's something more superficial. But of course, we don't know. He has used maintenance here. No,
So-
I think we can move on.
All right. If he wasn't responsible for the maintenance in a technical way, would he have been responsible for ensuring that your vehicles were in good order, in working condition?
No,
All
Or
right.
to wash them and so on.
yeah, well, yeah, from time to time, if the vehicles were dirty, then they would be taken to a car wash.
Paragraph 9.4, the following vehicles owned by Gama were used to transport him on official and private trips, namely Sub 1 BMW X5. This vehicle was later given to Gama's daughter. Sub 2 Range Rover Vogue, which is a fully armored vehicle. A photograph of this vehicle is attached. Perhaps we could go to that using the red numbers. I'd ask you please to go to page 104. Wish to comment on that?
I see
This
some
could be or
pages.
not be a picture of the car. I don't know. I mean, it's a side picture. So
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
I'm saying it could be or not be.
All right.
I wanted to say, Mr. Mybeck, for the record, I see that some pages in this bundle have got both the black and the red
Yes.
numbers, but we will stick to the red numbers throughout. Is that right?
For the purposes
this
of
bundle.
this evidence, if we could stick to the red numbers, please.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
What color was your Range Rover Vogue, Mr. Gama?
Black.
So
Did
just
you
that
say
I,
black?
Black.
Black, yeah.
just so I understand your evidence, you say with reference to this photograph, this may or may not be your vehicle.
Yes.
All right. You could then please go back to paragraph 9.4.3.
Maybe one can ask, it may or no, the picture may or may not have been your vehicle, but is the picture similar to your vehicle?
Yeah, there's a reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Mr. Mybeck?
Yes, and then the third vehicle listed is a Mercedes-Benz 500, which was often used for trips to KwaZulu-Natal. Fourth vehicle listed, a Mercedes-Benz SL63, which was mostly used as a weekend vehicle. Photograph of this vehicle is attached as Annexure W202. That you find at red number page 106. Want to comment on that?
Yes. I agree.
And then the fifth vehicle that is listed is a Mercedes-Benz S65. Since 2017, this vehicle was used to alternate with the Range Rover in paragraph 942. You want to comment on that?
No, nothing to add.
I beg your pardon?
Nothing to add.
Then over the page, paragraph 9.5, other vehicles that Mr. Gama owned over the years were the following. Perhaps I can just paraphrase this because it's not of particular importance. A Land Rover Discovery, a Lexus 4x4, a Lexus sedan, a BMW 320, and a Mini Cooper. Do you have any comment on that?
I think he's talking about cars that he may have seen over the years.
All right.
Whether I owned them or not, I think.
Well,
Which of-
maybe since he says you owned them, maybe you might wish to specify which ones you owned, which ones you didn't own, because he makes the allegation that you owned them.
Yeah, no. He's made that allegation on all the vehicles, but it's not
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's not true. He would see my daughter's car and then he says, it's my car.
Yeah. Well, do you want to clarify that? Do you want to clarify which ones you owned, which ones you may not have owned?
Like the X5, it's my daughter's car.
Just repeat that.
The BMW X5,
Yeah.
my daughter's car.
Did you own it before you gave it to her, or you bought it for her without first owning
No,
it?
it was hers, yeah.
Okay.
I just sometimes used it
Yeah.
because you could, it's a diesel. You can go to Durban and come back almost
Yeah.
with what it gives you
Okay.
without having to fill too much petrol.
So, Mr. Gama, if you look at paragraph 9.5, which of those vehicles didn't you own?
The Lexus 4x4 I didn't own.
Okay.
The Land Cruiser I did not own. The Mini Cooper was also my daughter's car.
So, just as I understand it, the Mini Cooper, you say it was my daughter's car, you didn't own it.
Sorry, the Mini Cooper.
Yeah,
I'm saying it was my daughter's car.
yes.
Yes.
And then the Land Rover Discovery and the Lexus 4x4 at 951, witness 2 says Land Rover Discovery, which was later traded to buy the Range Rover referred to in paragraph 9.4.2. Do you deny that?
No, I've said to you the Lexus 4x4 I did not own, which
Okay.
is 952.
952 Lexus 4x4, which was used by Mr. Gama's wife.
And also the Land Cruiser I did not own. And the Mini Cooper I did not own.
So where do I find the Land Cruiser?
It's on 952. It says an old Land Cruiser.
All right. Lexus 4x4, which was used by Mr. Gama's wife, an old Land Cruiser was traded to buy this. So you say that 952 is wrong in its entirety.
I'm saying I did not own the cars.
Okay.
I never owned them at the time when they were there. A lot of these cars, as sometimes he would rightly point out, that they were there and then they were replaced by other cars. But
All right.
it's not like I have that fleet of cars, maybe. I don't have.
Okay, at paragraph 9.6, due to the fact that we used Gama's private vehicles for transport, I did not keep logbooks of daily trips undertaken by him. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think it's correct.
And then under the heading Trips to the Gupta Residence, paragraph 10, I can recall that I've transported Gama on 4 occasions to the Gupta residence at Saxonwold Drive, Johannesburg. None of these trips were recorded in his diary. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, no, none of that happened. It's a fiction.
On the one occasion that you say you went to the Gupta residence, did witness 2 take you there?
You may have.
So he may have taken you once.
Yes.
Paragraph 11, on arrival at the residence, Gama would go into the house. I would wait for him to return in the vehicle in the parking area inside the premises. Comment on that?
What he could say is that on arrival at the residence, I went into the house and then I came out. Instead of saying I would, as if it was a regular thing.
Right. 12, whilst waiting for Gama in the parking area, I've seen Gianni's white VW Golf R parked in the parking area on 2 occasions. I actually saw Gianni going into the residence on one occasion.
No, I cannot comment on that. I know nothing about it.
Paragraph 13, one day Gianni mentioned to me in passing that I was being exposed to the, quote, shady stuff that they do. I did not ask him what he meant and left it at that. I inferred that he referred to his and Gama's dealings with the Gupta family. Want to comment on that?
No, I know nothing about that. I deny any reference to any shady stuff. But I don't know what he discussed with Gianni, that he says he discussed. Whether it happened or not, I don't know.
Paragraph 14 on
just
another...
1 second. The transcribers, can they tell me whether they hear Mr. Gama clearly? Is that a thumbs up or what is that? He must raise his voice. Okay, please try and speak
Okay,
up.
I'll get closer to the mic, Chair.
Yeah. Let's
Paragraph
continue.
14. On another occasion, whilst waiting for Gama in the parking area at the residence, Brian Malefe arrived with his Audi S8 and he went into the house. He drove there on his own. At the time, he had already been seconded to Eskom as CEO. You want to comment on that?
No, I have no knowledge.
Do you know whether Mr. Malefe ever drove an Audi S8?
Whether he drives an Audi S8? No. I thought it was an A8. I'm not sure. I think he used to have a silver A8. I'm not aware of an S8. I think an S8 is a different make of car.
And do you know whether Mr. Gianni ever drove a white VW Golf R?
No, I'm not aware.
Then under the heading Suitcase Collected at Gupta Residence, paragraph 15, during or about November 2016, during one of the visits to the Gupta residence, while I was waiting in the parking area in the Range Rover for Gama, he came out of the residence and told me that I should expect a person that would be bringing a bag to me in a few minutes. Approximately 10 minutes later, a man, who I think is a relative of the Guptas, came out of the house with a suitcase in his hand. He came to the vehicle and said that I must open the boot, which I did. He gave the suitcase to me and I put it into the boot. I noticed that it was a Polo branded suitcase. A picture of the suitcase similar to one referred to is attached as Annexure W2-03. Let me take you to that picture and then ask you to comment on the whole paragraph. That picture you find, Mr. Gama, red number, page 108.
Yeah, I see.
Would you say to paragraph 15, do you have any comment?
Yes, I can comment. It never happened. When I went to the residence, as I've testified to the commission, I did not know any people who stayed in the residence, so I don't think they would have given me anything. I've never seen the suitcase. As I've said to you, I was there for about 10 or 15 minutes. Went in with Mr. Issa, came out with him. There was no such, this is a fiction.
I see that he says that his witness too, that this was during about November 2016. I remember from the affidavit of yours that we dealt with earlier, that it seems that when you went to the Gupta residence, it was around November. Was it 2015 or was it 2016?
It was 2015.
2015, yes. And do we know, Mr. Maybeck, whether during 2015 witness 2 was providing protection services to Mr. Gama? Because I'm wondering whether we are dealing with a situation where you did go there, there's a problem with the dates, and then maybe about whether there was a suitcase or not, but whether, because he also refers to November, and I think in your affidavit you talked about November, but as you say, 2015.
For what period of time did witness 2 provide you with CPO services?
I think according to his there was something in the earlier paragraphs.
I thought he deals somewhere with the periods when he was providing protection services to you, but I don't see it.
He says generally at paragraph 2 you would have seen DCJ. I was previously employed as CPO and personal driver for Mr. Gama in his
Yes.
capacity as Chief Executive Transnet and later as the GCEO of Transnet. Can you remember for what period of time he provided you with CPO services?
I suspect it would have been between 2013 and 2017.
And hence, as you've said, he might have been the driver or he might have taken you to the Gupta residence on the one occasion that you say you went there.
Yes. I think he probably did.
Okay.
And at paragraph 16, on Gama's return from the residence, he asked me to take him to the Maslow Hotel at the corner of Rivonia and Grayston Drive in Sandton. I dropped Gama at the entrance of the hotel and went to park the vehicle. Comment on that?
It never happened.
Paragraph 17. After a while, I went into the hotel to order something to drink. I noticed that Gama and Gianni were sitting in the lounge by the bar. A few minutes later, Gama called me and instructed me to take the suitcase that he collected from the Gupta residence and to put it in the boot of Gianni's vehicle. Gianni gave me his keys and explained to me where his vehicle was parked. Comment on that?
Never happened.
Paragraph 18. As instructed, I went to the Range Rover and took the suitcase from the boot and took it to Gianni's vehicle, a white Mercedes-Benz GL, which was parked close to the entrance of the hotel. I subsequently put the suitcase in the boot of Gianni's vehicle, but before I closed the boot, I decided to see what was inside the suitcase. When I opened it, I saw that the bag was stacked with cash. The top layer contained bundles of 50 Rand and 100 Rand notes. I locked Gianni's vehicle and did not say anything to either Gama or Gianni of what I had seen inside the suitcase. Would you comment on that?
Never happened, yeah.
During the time that witness 2 provided you with CPO services, did you have occasion to visit the Maslow Hotel at the corner of Rivonia and Grayston Drive? Is it somewhere you would go?
Yes, I have on occasion, many occasions, visited that hotel, Maslow.
And then under the heading Collections at Melrose Arch, paragraph 19. During the period of providing CPO services for Gama, I transported him to Melrose Arch in Johannesburg on 3 occasions, where he collected cash from Salim Essa. Want to comment on that?
No, it did not happen.
Did you ever meet Mr. Essa at Melrose Arch?
No.
Did you know where Mr. Essa's offices were?
No, I don't know them.
At paragraph 20, Gama introduced me to Essa. On a previous occasion, I've learned through media reports that Essa is linked to the Guptas. I attach here too as annexure W2-04, a picture obtained from the internet as confirmation that this is the person known to me as Essa. Could I ask you please to go to red number page 110, 110. You want to comment on that paragraph and the photograph?
I can take a picture of DCJ is covered fairly often in the newspaper. It will have his picture and his name, and I can say this is the person that is known as Justice Zondo. I don't know what to make of it.
But do you know picture at page 110? Do you know that to be Salim Essa?
Yes, I know that is Salim Essa.
Then witness 2 says at paragraph 21, I can specifically recall the details of 2 of the collections which are discussed below. And then he starts with a collection on the 13th of June 2017. He says at paragraph 22, in the first instance, which occurred on 13 June 2017, Gama contacted me and requested that I should collect a parcel from Essa at the Melrose Apartments and thereafter pick him up at the African Pride Hotel in Melrose Arch. You want to comment on that?
May I request that we take all of it?
Yes, I think perhaps
22,
best. And then
25.
then you can refer to the minutes that you want to. Should we go through the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. And then at paragraph 23, as instructed, I drove to the Melrose Apartments, where I waited for Essa in the parking area. Sometime after my arrival at Melrose Arch, Essa approached me where I was waiting in Gama's Range Rover. Essa handed over a striped bag with a zip to me. I attach here too a picture of a bag similar to the one that Essa handed to me as annexure W2-05. Perhaps I could ask you to go to page 112, red numbers. There you will find a picture of the bag. We go back to paragraph 23. At the foot of the page, 94, after putting the bag in the boot of the vehicle, I drove to the African Pride Hotel, where I collected Gama at the entrance. I attach here too as annexure W2-06, a printout of Google Maps travel history obtained from my cellular phone as confirmation that I arrived at Melrose Arch at 2000 hours 27 and departed at 2100 hours 36. Now that annexure you find at page 114. And there you will see the bottom part of the page, reference to Melrose Arch and to 8:27 and 9:36 p.m. If you go back to paragraph 24, Later that evening, I transported Gama to an address in Bryanston where a close friend of his stayed. See Annexure W2-06 as confirmation that I arrived at the Bryanston address at 2200 hours 37 and that I departed from there at 0100 hours 57 in the early morning. That annexure you find at red number page 117. And you will see at the foot of the page, there's reference to a Bryanston address and to the time 10:37 p.m. and 1:57 a.m. And if we go to paragraph 25, a while after arriving at his close friend's residence, Gama opened the bag inside the boot, and I saw that it was stacked with 200 Rand notes. I assisted Gama to count the money right there in the boot in the Range Rover. To the best of my recollection, the amount came to approximately 1 million Rand. Paragraph 26, Gama divided the cash amount approximately in half. He took the one half inside the house where he handed it to his close friend. From the other half, he counted out 50,000 Rand, which he gave me as a present. At the time, I was in the process of building my house in Soweto. I used some of this money to buy building material. The remaining money was left in the bag in the boot of the vehicle, which he later took from the boot of the vehicle at his residence in Midrand when I dropped him off. I take it you want to cross-refer, Mr. Gama, to your affidavit.
That is correct.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So I will deal, it's 13th of June.
Yes. 2017.
Yes. So on this particular day that he refers to, and it's given certain times and the Google Maps, I have attached for your reference what actually transpired on that day. You will see that I was at a meeting in Pretoria. And if you reference to my affidavit, and I think I've attached minutes also of that meeting.
All right, well, perhaps I could take you through this so we can go through it thoroughly, if you might assist. Mm-hmm. You're dealing, as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Gama, with paragraph 13 at page 250.266. There it says, add 13 June 2017. Is that right? And then you say, at 13.1.1, witness 2 alleges in paragraphs 22 to 26. Well, that's what we've been dealing with. That on 13 June 2017, I contacted him and allegedly requested him to collect a parcel from Salim Essa at Melrose Apartments, and that following on the collection of the parcel, I allegedly requested him to collect me from African Pride Hotel. As can be seen from Annexure W2-05, witness 2 arrived at Melrose Arch at 20:27 and departed at 21:36. You say over the page, I was then allegedly transported to a close friend in Bryanston at 2237 and arrived at my residence at 0157. And you say at paragraph 13.2, I deem it prudent to inform the Commission that this is inconsistent with the actual events of the day on 13 June 2017, as I was at a point attending a special board meeting of Transnet directors in Pretoria, which commenced at 1733 and ended at 1803. I annex here too, marked SG2, a copy of the minutes of the aforesaid board meeting. So this was a half an hour board meeting, is that right?
That's correct.
Between 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon or early evening.
Yes.
And if we can, I can take you then to SG2.
So if maybe you can just finish it.
Oh, sorry, okay.
13.3.
From Annexure W2-06, witness 2 left the meeting in Pretoria at 19H43, 1 hour and 45 minutes after the meeting had concluded. There would have been no reasonable explanation for me to stay in Pretoria for an extra hour and 40 minutes after the end of the meeting. Okay. So let me just take you then to SG2. SG2 is headed Minutes of the closed session of the Special Board of Directors meeting. I beg your pardon, this is at page 276. Minutes of the closed session of the Special Board of Directors meeting, number 2-17/18 FY, held at 1733 on 13 June 2017 at Platinum Boardroom, Building 21, CSIR, Mayor and Nordia Road, Pretoria. Those are the minutes you refer to. Chairperson, I see that it is 1 o'clock.
Did you confirm that those are the minutes you are referring to?
Those are the minutes I refer to, Chair.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's take the lunch adjournment and we'll resume at 2. We adjourn.